All right. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out today to join us for the webinar here. My name is Rick Wilson with Martin Associates. Hopefully everything's getting back to normal for your businesses out there. So today we're excited to welcome you guys to the presentation of Sage Data and Analytics powered by ZAP. So Sage Data and Analytics, or we call it SD&A. It's a cloud-based business intelligence platform that delivers insights from everything from sales dashboards to custom financial statements, and it leverages pre-packaged reports and data models specifically for Sage 100, which is really nice. So you can get up and running, real quick. So before I introduce some of our presenters today from ZAP, take care of a few housekeeping items. Presentation's being recorded, and a link will be sent to everyone over the next day or so. Please use the chat or Q&A. Either one we'll be able to monitor if you have questions. We plan to cover most of those at the end, and we'll make sure we get to all of them. And we will go from there. So we're lucky to have with us today Trey Johnson and Rich Eckert from ZAP, and they're going to run the presentation today. So I believe, Trey, you'll be kicking things off, so go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Rick, and thank you to the Martin and Associates team, and more so thank you to your customers for spending a little time with us. So my name is Trey Johnson. I'm kind of half of the duo that's going to be talking to you from the Sage Data and Analytics, or SD&A team today. And what we wanted to do is just lead off with a few slides to just help orient you to the solution, kind of describe why it has come about, and certainly lead up very well to a great demo that Rich is going to do in just a moment. So really starts with the challenges that many of you as Sage 100 and other customers in the Sage 300 community have been experiencing really for quite some time, whether it's the challenges around the generating of the reports and the time and the cost that you've put into that using really a multitude of tools, to all the other things that basically have taken away from your ability to have more significant insights into your business. And so Sage Data and Analytics has been brought from the Sage X3 ecosystem, where it has done incredibly well for the last 4 years, into the Sage 100 and 300 market. And so the other things that we're doing with the breadth of the technology is not only giving you those cohesive insights from the dashboards, but also ensuring that you really have a platform that supports decision-making across the business. So whether that's or people that are sitting within your organization, within the four walls at a desk, or it's folks that are outbound, within your organization, the technology is such that it can be delivered to all of these different audiences simply via a browser. And so that browser-based orientation creates the right opportunity for not only people to be very well connected to it, but also the cloud-based nature of the platform brings in the data from your ERP in such a way that you can really focus on making business decisions within the Sage Data and Analytics platform versus using reporting that otherwise slows down and inhibits your ERP's operation. And so picture is very much worth 1,000 words. And so if you look at the right-hand side of this particular slide, what you'll notice is that Sage Data and Analytics really spans a couple of different areas. And that's because, as our name implies, we're focused on both the data and the analytical content. And so on the data front, what we do is we connect very intelligently to Sage 100 and other Sage ERPs, and we bring that information into the cloud within a data model that is really optimized for the purposes of your reporting and analysis. What we also provide out of the box is a set of prepackaged analytical content. And that prepackaged analytical content spans the financial arena, AR and AP, sales, purchasing, and inventory as well. Beyond that, from a capability standpoint, you'll notice some gray boxes on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Those aren't really any specific data sources, but rather the fact that all of your data sources can actually be integrated in alongside of your ERP. So if that's something as simplistic as a mission critical Excel file, or more complicated, like your organization has grown through expansion and you have the acquisition of another firm that's running a different ERP, all of that data can be brought in and used for the purposes of analysis and visibility across your business. What really sets us apart starts with the data management and that automation that you find there, because a lot of the tools that you maybe have used to this point have kind of scratched the surface on BI. Maybe they've done some reporting, or they've done reporting in a slightly more sophisticated way. And if that's all that we did, you wouldn't need Sage Data and Analytics from a product perspective. But what we do, again, is we really intelligently capture that information from Sage 100, and we deliver you into a platform that supports decision-making, starting with some prepackaged analytical content. And underlying that prepackaged analytical content is a real robust set of out-of-the-box calculations. And so we've got some of those calculations bulleted on the bottom of the screen, elements that you would naturally think that you could reuse, whether it be EBITDA or cash-to-cash cycle metrics, or inventory metrics, or even things that are happening in terms of delivery performance and average daily costs, sales costs, and those sorts of things. All of those inbuilt metrics drive our out-of-the-box analytics, but more importantly are available to you within the platform so that you can reuse them across a multitude of reports. So long gone is the need to recreate that gross margin calculation in every report that you create, but rather you have a data platform that really serves up that opportunity to reuse that calculation. The other element that naturally sets us apart is with all of this capability, you might assume that it takes some time for this to come online. But the reality is Sage Data and Analytics, being a SaaS platform application, is such that it is provisioned. There's no software setup that you're having to do for your organization, but rather it's all happening, within the cloud. And once provisioned, there's simply an opportunity to connect your Sage 100 deployment to SD&A, and quite literally working with Martin and Associates through the process of implementation, you're live in hours. And that being live in hours means that you're off to the races in terms of your start. But more importantly, the cloud-based nature and all of the automation we've put into the platform it automatically keeps up to date your product as well as the data that one would expect. Lastly, probably the last point that I'll make is that some of you may be sitting in a position where you're on Sage 100 today, but you may be contemplating a future that has other Sage ERPs in mind. The great news is, because of our support across all of the Sage ERP products, you can quite literally pick up the analytics and your data and take them with you to wherever else you might go as far as the Sage ERPs are concerned. And that's a very reassuring element in the face of scenarios where maybe you don't want to invest more heavily in reporting that maybe isn't going to live a long enough life to be valuable in your current Sage 100 environment. Lastly, it's an important kind of caveat. Some of you are more familiar with the cloud than others. The great news is our technology is such that wherever Sage 100 is located, we can actually access that data, and that data can be brought from your premises, from a partner-hosted environment, or even a cloud environment directly into Sage Data and Analytics, with refreshes happening typically on at least a once-a-day basis, but also with refreshes being able to be manually triggered as well. So with that, we've moved fairly quickly through some slides, but that was intentional because Rich, I know, has a wonderful demo that's set up to really walk us through a lot of facets of the technology. And so we'll do that over the course of the next 25 to 30 minutes, and then we'll circle back around and tell you just a little bit more about the product and its packaging. So with that, Rich, I'm going to stop sharing, and if we could have you kind of take center stage.
Yeah, thank you, Trey, and thank you to Martin Associates for inviting us to present to everyone here today. So really happy to be here. My name is Rich Ecker. I'm the pre-sales lead for SD&A here for the Americas. And so think of me as a demo guy. I'm sort of the technical sales guy. So I will be the one kind of showcasing the product today. All right. And I'm going to start sharing my screen. And hopefully you guys can start seeing it. Trey, can you confirm if you see the proper screen?
Absolutely, Rich. Looks great.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So I'll go ahead and get started. So today we're going to do a presentation and a walkthrough of what comes out of the box. And that'll encompass the majority of our presentation with Sage Data and Analytics. And so we're going to spend time looking at the various different dashboards and reports that become live immediately upon implementation of SD&A. So that's the key thing. Keep in mind, everything that we're going to showcase today is part of the standard default pack. The other thing to keep in mind is that we understand that we can't build, a specific report for everybody, but what we can do is give you a heck of a template. And that's really what we're doing now, is that we're going to be showing you sort of a starting point of your analytics so that when you get this tool, you can make the tweaks and the customizations pretty quickly to match your needs instead of building everything from scratch. So just keep that in mind. Everything that you see is customizable, from the metrics, from the way the charts look, from the orientation, everything can be changed. So we'll do a walkthrough of some of the financial analytics, sales analytics. We may spend a little bit of time on some of the other areas. Well, those are probably the two main areas that we're going to spend time on. Then what we'll do is we'll flip over to the other side, where if something is not immediately out of the box, how would you go about reporting on it with Sage Data and Analytics? So if there's a custom report or you need to make changes, how do you go about doing that? We'll talk about that afterwards. And then two other kind of key areas. We'll talk about how you can make this data accessible and how you can distribute it. And we'll also finish up with, hey, we're not just about your Sage data. We are about all of your data. So just keep that in mind. If there's other data sets that you need, we're going to show you just at the tail end that we can probably connect to it. All right, so let's get started. So I am logged in as an end user. So I am someone here that has the ability to just run reports. I can make selections. I can export the data. In this view, I don't have the ability to build reports. So this, again, the first part is demonstrating what an end user gets out of the box. Now I'm logged in as a regular user here. I'm logged in on it is a web browser. So it is cloud enabled. And I'm going to go ahead and just maximize the screen. And now you can see I have all these different areas that I can dig into. So if I dig into financials, you'll see that there's sub menus for accounts payable, accounts receivable, financial statements. In whatever subject area that you're in, there's always a high level dashboard. We're starting with financials, so we're going to start there first. This is what gets turned on. So when you log on to Sage Data Analytics, this is going to be the CFO dashboard. And what you'll notice is that up in the top left, you have the date selection here. So obviously we can come in here, we can change this to whatever date that we need. If you have multiple companies, this will automatically combine all the data from all your companies together. So you have one view of that. But if you need to make a selection and you want to isolate one particular company, you can. These selections can be, you can add or subtract as many of these filters as you need as well. Now let's talk about what do you get? With the CFO dashboard, you're getting sort of how your business is doing at a glance with this top line. So what's our sales? What's your margin, your profit? How's your accounts receivable and payables? What's your liquidity ratios, your leverage ratios? Below that, you have some information that gives a little bit more details as to what this information is. So how's your margin doing over time? How's your accounts receivable? How does that compare to last month or last year? What's your liquidity ratio over time? Are you increasing in assets or liabilities? Your operating profit, how's that trending? How's your leverage ratio trending, and et cetera? So what we're trying to do is saying, hey, a financial user can come in here and immediately gain value and kind of start identifying areas that may need investigation. So for example, if I'm a financial manager, I'm looking at this, I can see that there's a very big drop in a couple months of margin. I can interrogate these drops. So I can say, you know what, I'm going to investigate January. And now I'm at a week view and I can see, well, it's not every week, but it looks like week 42 has some issues. And I can dig deeper into that. And now I'm at a day-by-day view of what my margin is. And I can see that we have a big issue on the 31st here. And maybe that's something, maybe something was entered in wrong. I would even then have the ability to get to the line item transaction details from here to see what potentially could be the issue. The other thing that you'll notice with Sage Analytics is there is built-in, I would call it smart navigation. So if you're looking at this financial overview, this is a very dashboard-oriented report meant to provide high-level information. If you want to navigate to something more detailed, where there is just a lot more information you can analyze, there's built-in navigation that helps you get there. And you can see that there is this income statement dashboard with filters applied. And so we can go ahead, navigate to that particular report. And now we're pivoting from looking at a high-level financial overview to a little bit more detailed view here on the left-hand side. And so now what we're looking at is we have this P&L here. Now, think of this as a templated P&L. I'll explain that in a second. And you have some additional benchmark metrics on the right-hand side. And so you can see, how is your margin doing month to date, quarter to date? Same with operating profit and net sales. You can see how that compares to last year. You'll also have information of how are you trending against budget. You can see we're lower on margin, but we're doing well on operating profit and net profit. So our expenses are probably a little bit lower than we need than what we forecast, which is good. We can see our operating profit, how, month over month, how is that doing? So you get all of this information that again turns on out of the box. Other information and other abilities that we offer is the fact that when you're looking at this information, you may have questions. You may say, you know what, I'm looking at this, but I don't believe the numbers, or I don't trust the numbers, and I need to validate what I'm seeing here. And so you can go into any one of these and say, you know what, I have some questions on this payroll expenses or this travel entertainment. Let's analyze that. So we just go ahead and double click onto that. And now I can see at a line item transaction detail exactly the components that make up that 44,000. Okay, and now this view is giving you all the raw details of what makes up that number. So now you have trust in the data. And at this point, this is a specific view, but this view also can be changed. So if there are elements that you need to add in, maybe there's account categories, or maybe the journal entry number, or you need, maybe it's a few like vendor codes or other kind of codes that you want to add in here, you can. This all can be customized and tailored to your needs. The other thing that you're also going to be able to get is if you're working within this and you're saying, okay, this is helpful. I see a problem here, and now I need to export this information. I can go ahead and obviously you can download a PDF, CSV, or Excel, and you can export this information the way that you want. So let's go back. Now, I talked about that this is a templated P&L. We understand that every company has a different P&L. We're giving sort of a baseline structure to it, but you have the ability to customize this. So if you need to bring in different time periods, you want to have collapsible grouping. So if I dig into cost of goods sold, I can look at every single cost of goods sold account. You can do that. If you need to add in your own metrics, maybe you calculate margin differently, or maybe there's additional things that you need to include in here, you're able to. This can be set up any way to run your financials. All right. So let's continue on. Now, if I go back to that CFO dashboard, we kind of showed how we can go from a higher level, especially in margin, and dig into some of the more financial details. We have the same kind of capability with the rest of this data too. So if we're looking at accounts receivable, I may be a financial manager and I want to interrogate that a little bit further. I can. And there's that built-in smart navigation again, telling me, okay, I'm looking at AR. Now it probably makes sense to go to the AR dashboard. And here we are. And so what do I get across the top? I'm getting information that's letting me know what's open, what's overdue. Here's our aging by buckets. This is for overdue, and this is what's current aging by buckets. We have which customers have the most amount overdue. We see a trend line of letting us know how good are we at collecting AR? Are we collecting, or is our collection improving? It looks like it's increasing the number of days to pay. So it's something that we would want to investigate. But the other thing that Sage Data Analytics is providing too is that we include additional metrics that are not part of your Sage ERP. So for example, you can see a couple of these are referenced here. So we have best possible day sales outstanding. We have average days delinquent. And if there's ever any question in terms of how these are calculated, again, you have trust in the data because we're telling you how these metrics are obtained. And obviously you can always get down to those details if you need to. Now, as an AR person, I may come in here and say, hey, here's my aging by bucket, but I need to see all my customers. And I want to work maybe a specific aging bucket. So you can. You can work with the built-in navigation, dig into this open aging accounts. And now we have an AR aging style report, not really a dashboard. This is more of a report that's hyper-focused on managing your AR. And we can see, we can go ahead, work any one of our aging buckets, probably want to sort from our worst offenders. And now we have a ranking of all of our customers, the amount of money that's overdue, and all their data, all that information here. I could hover over the customer to see a little bit more information about that particular customer if I need to. Or what probably I would end up doing is if I'm managing this AR, again, just double click on this and we get all those details. So I can see exactly what makes up that particular amount. So you get a complete analytical way of looking at your AR, but also some operational aspects, being able to get down to those granular details as well. Now coming back up, you'll notice that we have accounts payable, and it's a very similar type of flow that we offer for that too, right? So we have a dashboard that's for accounts payable, ranks all your vendors by invoices, which vendors you owe the most money to, you have your aging, and also your average days to pay with respect to payables. So all this is here. And again, a key thing to know, if we go all the way back to the CFO dashboard, if there are elements that need to be changed, if you don't need these metrics, you don't need cash to cash cycle, get rid of it. If you want a different chart, maybe you want to input some more maybe some further sales metrics on this financial dashboard, you can't. So again, we're trying to give you that starting point that you can then tailor to make most for your business. So we did everything on we scratched the surface on financials. There are other reports, there's financial statements that we can dig into. And so there's balance sheet, trial balance, etc. But what we want to do now is we want to go back up and we want to showcase some of the other types of reporting, because we're not just a financial reporting tool. We are a business intelligence and analytics solution. And so that means that we can provide reporting on any of the data coming from Sage, as well as other external data sources too. But let's show what do we have out of the box regarding sales. So if we come here, you'll notice that there's a collection of different folders. So I can get into delivery performance. How are we meeting our Are we meeting our customers' delivery requirements? We can see what is going on with back orders or say, over here. Do we have open orders? How's our sales people producing? But then again, we can always just start with that high level dashboard. And with that high level dashboard, as a sales manager, I have the ability to see, okay, where am I selling? Who am I selling to? Who's my best producers? Which items am I selling? And again, if these are attributes that you don't need, you get rid of them. This could easily be regions. This could be item groups. This could be sales channels. However you want to configure this, that can be done. And so now that sales manager comes in, I can see at a glance what's going on. We can see how our sales are trending. We can see we have this delivery performance and seeing exactly, are we meeting our customers' delivery requirements and quantity requirements? Are we delivering in full and on time? We have a little bit more operational information down here. So we have sales invoice analysis that tells us where our margin is coming from. Are there any returns? And then we have sales order analysis that's letting us know, hey, what's the amount on sales orders and are there any back orders that we need to be aware of? As a sales manager or any user that has access to this, they can come in here and say, oh, you know what? I have some questions on this back order amount. I can interrogate that, even though it's not on the financials, doesn't matter. We can get into those line item transaction details and we can see these are the items that are on back order. Quick and easy, you can go from that high level into those details. Now you can also work with this information a little bit interactively or in an interactive method too. So if you're looking at countries and you're the sales manager, you want to focus in on US, just click on it. Now we're going to see North American customers, North American invoices, sales orders, sales reps, etc. And now we're just focused in on just North America. Do the same with customers, sales reps, or any other attribute that you want. And obviously you have these selections across the top here. So if I want to just narrow in on a particular employee, I can do so as well. And now I'm only going to see information instead of everything. We're just looking at a particular employee. But these selections can be set up the way that you want. Also, consider the fact that you can bring in external data with your sales. So for example, if there is, if you have a CRM solution and you want to include leads and qualified leads and those types of information on your sales dashboard, we could link into that data set and visualize it within here as well. All right, let me continue on. So we showed some sales analytics. We didn't go into everything. We're just scratching the surface. We showed financial metrics. I also want to just kind of highlight the fact that we have procurement metrics as well, or procurement dashboard, and think of this as a way to manage your vendors. So not just from an AP style of invoice, but actually a little bit more granular. So letting you know, hey, which vendors are you spending the most on? What items are you spending the most on? Which items are spending them, or which locations are spending the most? And then down here, you have this, like what I kind of call a vendor scorecard, right? And you can see, are you paying more, versus the outgoing PO? This is your price variance here. Are the vendors delivering when they say that they are? You can see that information here. And you have some other kind of high level metrics across the top, just looking at all your vendors and how you're doing. And then obviously you can come in here, you can select specific vendors, et cetera, to get a little bit more detail. Last one that I'm just going to quickly highlight. We showed procurement. Now we also have an inventory dashboard as well. And this is, again, designed to give that inventory manager a quick glance as to what's going on with inventory. And we're looking at a high level right now. So this is all inventory items. So it's telling us what our turn is, what our valuation is, where are our items as well from a work order standpoint and a receipt standpoint. We can see what we're stocked up on the most. We have quantity and value here as well. But you can get very specific. If you want to look at particular item groups, we could look at particular item groups. If we want to bring in individual items, you could run this dashboard for individual items. It's really up to you how you want to do it. Or if you want to focus on one particular location, you're able to just make that selection here and just choose a particular location. So you have that ability to interact with it this way too. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to cover from the out-of-the-box analytics. And again, everything that I showed here is what gets turned on upon implementation. So now let's really get into the part of Sage Data and Analytics that I think is the most exciting part, and that's building your own content. And so we showed a lot of, hey, what's out of the box? But how do you build something that is not there? Or how do you just build a report in general? So let's go ahead and we're going to flip over to the other side. So I'm going to exit out of this and I'm going to jump over to our, close all these. This is our design experience. I'm going to close everything that I have here. And when you start in this view, you'll notice that this is your starting page. I'm going to go ahead and maximize it again, just to kind of clear up any kind of noise on the screen. But this is the view that a designer or a power user would have. This is someone that typically is an Excel guru, really, building reports in Excel. Maybe they have some database knowledge, someone that's always that report person, bringing all these different data sets together and making, quote unquote, the magic happen, right? That's the type of person that would use this type of view. And so I have the ability, you'll notice as a power user, I can build a chart, a table, a dashboard, some detail reports. And there's some other components here that a power user would have. So how does SD&A help this power user? And how would a power user build a report? That's what we're going to jump into right now. So now I'm going to come in as a power user, and I'm going to start building a table. And when I say power user, don't get too scared, because honestly, I would say with a very little amount of training, you're able to build out meaningful reports here. I'm on the wrong data set here, so let's jump into, we wanted to go to here. Okay. So the benefit of working with Sage Data and Analytics is that we automatically organize all the data coming from your Sage ERP in a meaningful way. What that means is that from a technical aspect, we can go into the database. We know where in the database to get sales data, purchasing data, inventory data, all the things that we showed on the previous screens. We know where all that stuff resides in Sage. And what we do is we bring it into this data model where we then, instead of looking at cryptic technical column names and technical jargon, we make it business user friendly. And the output of that business user friendly view is what you're seeing on the right-hand side. So now any user that has an idea of how the business operates can build a report. I don't have to be a Sage 100 or Sage expert at all. I can come in here and now start building my meaningful, relevant report because of the effort of what Sage Data and Analytics did. And it's organized all this data here. So if I drill into here, I can see exactly all these different subject areas that I may want to report on. If I want to look at accounts payable, here's all my accounts payable metrics. If I want to look at accounts receivable, here's my accounts receivable metrics. If I want to look at purchase orders, inventory, all this stuff is right here. I don't have to configure this. This is already there for me. Now, obviously, if there's customizations, there's UDFs, there's other fields that you need to bring in. Yes, with a checkbox, you can bring them in and then they come over here. But this is where you're starting from. And you'll see that everything in blue is what you can report by. So you could do sales by date, by customer, etc. So to build a report, it's drag and drop. I can come in here, look at this. If I want to start building a sales report, let's start building it. So we can go ahead and say, you know what, we want our invoice amount. And we want to look at this by customer, right? And maybe I want to use some of the built-in hierarchies. We can do that if we chose to. So we could use our built-in hierarchy. Looks like most everything is in the US. Then we can dig in. We can see we have that built-in hierarchy. It allows you to kind of drill in from a very high level down into those details. And now here's that customer that we're looking at. But that's not our business need right now. What we want to do here is we want to just look at it customer level. So here's our sales by customer. Now we haven't provided any context to this. So if we want to provide, maybe we want to bring in company as a selection criteria. We want to also bring in, dates, right? So we want to bring in a date parameter as well. Let's say it defaults to here. We're going to run this for 2020. Okay. So now we've gone ahead and we've built out this report this way, right? Now we can bring in, again, additional selection. We can bring in as many selections as we want. So if we want to do filters on items, countries, any one of these you can bring in. If you have your own hierarchy that you organize all your customers by, you can bring that hierarchy in as well. So that's how we get started. Very kind of pivot style, easy drag and drop. Now, at this point, you also have the ability to leverage some of our time value functions too. And it's really simple to bring this in. So a lot of times we hear customers, especially in sales, they want to see sales today or sales this month, last 3 months, last 6 months, last year, last month, all those kind of comparisons and have it on one report. How would you go about doing that? So with Sage Data and Analytics, we have these time value functions here. So just by clicking in here, I can choose of time value functions. And you notice I have all these different periods and functions that I can grab onto. And if we look at our period to date, we can just quickly add in our prior month to date. So we'll add in our prior month to date. We'll say we want it to our prior month invoice amount and hit apply. And now you notice it's blank. It's because I'm for the year. But if I get into, let's look at June. Here's our sales for June, and this is our sales for May. If I go down, and you'll notice that this number will jump over to here for May. That represents the current amount. So you can build in these comparisons very quickly and add in a lot of these different time values that you may want. Now, the other thing that you're able to do too is you can, this is just a very simple tabular style report. You can visualize this very quickly. So we can come into here. Let's sort this by highest amount. And let's say that we want to turn this into a chart. So we just come in here, choose chart. Now, a line chart probably doesn't make the most sense on this. I think a bar chart would look a little bit better for this type of data. So we can come in here and say, let's just change that into a bar chart. And now you have a customer by customer view, what their sales are this year versus last year. Obviously, we have many other different charts here that you can build upon. All right, so this has been set up. Now we have the ability that we can publish this. And there's a few different ways that you can publish this out to your organization. So the power user would say, hey, this is looking good. Oh, but you know what? I need to get rid of the table here. I don't need the table anymore. We want to just keep it as a chart. Great, we'll just keep it as a chart. We'll resize it. Now this is the report that we want, right? So that power user would come in here, hit save. I'm going to create a new folder called custom reports. And I'm going to call this, what do I want to call this? We'll just call it sales customer. Hit OK. And so now that has been published. So now that means anyone that has rights to sales data into that folder would be able to access this report, and they would have this view. And I'm going to show it now. So an end user now would be able to come in, and this is their view. And now they can come in here and play with the dates. So if they want to run this for May, now we're looking at data for May. I can change the companies, etc. But now that sales user can even go a little bit deeper too. Even though now they can't add in additional selections here, but what they can do is they can interrogate the data like I showed before. Even though the designer didn't build in that drill through capability, an end user can come in here, run the report with as many parameters as they need, and then double click on whatever parameter that they're looking at to see exactly the details that makes that information up. So the situation of, oh, hey, my sales amount is only 50,000 and it should be 60,000. Well, now that salesperson can come in and actually look and see what's missing themselves. Okay. So that's kind of what I wanted to show from a building standpoint, and think about the fact that we can do this building on any data set too. So on any data set that we connect to, we can do this. And so just for example, if we were to connect to another data set, this is going to be a list of other data sets that we can connect to. So it's an extensive list. There's many ERPs that we're connecting to, obviously the Sage ecosystem here. But if there's data in a database, SQL Server, ODBC connection, there's data living in Excel or CSV, or what I really think is very interesting is if there's data that is in an API that you have to call, like maybe it's like Shopify data or some other kind of API that a web product that has that as a connection, we can connect to it, as well as other kind of key data sets. We have that you'll see here as well, like Google Analytics, Google Sheets, etc. So I kind of like to say, if the data is structured in some sort of tabular way, we can connect to it. And just as an example here, I just did one other, like looking at other data sets here. If we were to start building another report off of other data set, you can see that it's the same process. So we have one other data set here. And this is just population data that I just obtained online. I think this was through an API. And so I was able to just come in here and just quickly build out a visual interactive style report. And so I can say, you know what, I want this to be a chart. And we want to look at population. And we want the chart to be a map chart, being that it's map type data. And we want this to be by, whoops, should be population here. And we'll give this just a second to render here. And now we have sort of chart of all the areas here. And so this is what's possible. This could be sales data. I mean, the size of the circles could represent how strong your business is doing. You can see some big circles over here where there's larger population in New York, Miami, LA. So obviously, this just gives you sort of an example of what is possible with other data sets as well. And the fact that you can even use like map type data to get meaningful visualizations. The last thing that I wanted to just touch on too is we showed how we can publish this to that cloud interface, right? Well, what if you have users that they're not in Sage and they just want to receive an email with some of that information? You absolutely can do that too. And so you can set up these things called publication rules. And I think I have one set up right now just to kind of show you a very quick example of what that could end up looking like. And you could set up basically a collection of reports that get automatically delivered. And you could set up a schedule of when they are delivered. And that's, so think of it as which reports do you want and when they want to be delivered. You can set that up as well within Sage Edit. And an example of what that looks like is we put together a set of financials, right? And so here's we titled this our annual report pack, you can see that there's an executive summary up at the top that we've created using Sage Data and Analytics, and a customized P&L. And so looking at this, we can see here's our executive summary. There could be some text here that describes how the business is doing. There's some quick little gauges and charts here that you can build. This, again, just fair warning, this is not out of the box. This is just an example of what you can build with Sage Data and Analytics. And then here's our customized P&L. And this is coming up this way. So this can be triggered as an email delivery on any reports that are built within Sage Data and Analytics. So keep in mind that so you could have those users that just want to just get an emailed subscription. You can do that as well. The other thing, and this is the last thing that I'm going to touch on, is you also have the ability to set up threshold alerts. And so a more business or concrete example is if you're managing your AR, and let's say that you want an AR report going out every day, and it lists all your customers and their AR balance. But you're only going to target the ones that have a certain balance, right? Maybe it's $1 million balance, or maybe it's maybe it's $100,000 balance. Whatever that threshold is, you can do that. And so you can set up an alert that basically says, you know what, only send out this AR report if customers are meeting that threshold. And I have already kind of put this together already, but an example of what that looks like is this: we have this AR alert publication. And so this is referencing this is saying, hey, send this out to these people, this particular report, which is this particular report. I'll show you that. And so here's the listing of customers, what they're overdue. And so again, it's similar to that AR aging report that I showed you before. It gives you sort of a visual indicator of, hey, if anyone is in the red, meaning that they're late. If they're current, it's in green. So it's just giving you that indicator there. And it's saying only send this report out if and this AR threshold is saying if the threshold is above $1 million. So you have that ability to set up this type of publication where now it's conditional and it's only going to go out. So again, what this does is it eliminates the noise. You're not getting all these report subscriptions every single day where you're just kind of immediately trashing them. You're only getting them if there is something to look at.
That's really exceptional, and I think it probably represents a reasonable endpoint, knowing that we could probably go on all day showing them a lot of good stuff, but just the multitude of ways that people can interact with the data from their Sage 100 deployment through to the point of where you're doing some custom publication of unique assets, to members of the organization at the time they need to see them, versus just simply filling up their inbox on a weekly basis, is just a really compelling thing. So thank you very much for that. I think I'll, if you don't mind, Rich, and
yep, go
stop sharing.
That was the end of it.
Okay, cool.
All right, I will stop sharing.
So here we go. So there we are. And here's share. Here we go. So just really one set of items just to run through, just to help the folks on the line and those that are viewing this webinar later. There's the packaging approach that we've taken with Sage Data and Analytics is such that there's really an option for all different sizes of organizations, and really one of the more compelling facets of what we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that how we package this up was available to you in a way that it could be deployed quickly, that you could see a lot of those analytics that Rich was showing out of the box, but more so that as you decided whether or not you wanted to move forward, that it was an easy to understand pricing and packaging model. And most importantly, this is something that you can only get through Sage business partners who are really, committed to making sure that SD&A was available to you, with their own staff going through certification processes and the like. So with that said, this is the packaging. So there's 3 different tiers. There's the standard, advanced, and premium. The standard tier is very much kind of an entry-level tier. It focuses in on organizations that maybe only have a couple of companies, that have a limited number of users that they might want to use, and also only focuses on the financial prepackaged analytical content. When you move into the advanced tier and the premium tier, that content is now not only the financial pieces, but also the sales, purchasing, inventory management as well. So it's a more robust in that regard. Furthermore, you have support for more companies, so more support for more designers and consumer users out of the box. Plus, there's an opportunity to add users through the extras that are available on these 2 plans as well. So a bit more on offer as you move into the advanced realm, and certainly the availability of adding on things like data source connections in the advanced plan allows you to bring, say you have Sage CRM or you have some other application that you want to include alongside of your Sage 100 data, you can do. Premium is for those organizations that have more than the 5 companies, have larger data requirements of what they're uploading to the cloud. Basically, it's for organizations that maybe just have a slightly broader need for Sage Data and Analytics than those that might be on advanced, and certainly those that would be on standard. The pricing that you see across the top is the all-in annual pricing. It's for both software and the hosting costs. Because it's a cloud-based application, it's all being delivered via the cloud. So you're literally in the hundreds of dollars per month, but it's paid out to Sage on an annual basis. If there are additional options that are needed, those items are available on the right-hand side of the screen. And I have no doubt that if you have interest in Sage Data and Analytics, that the team at Martin & Associates would work very closely with you on that. Furthermore, the nature of support around the product is such that there's an implementation typically, and then following the implementation, after the out-of-the-box capabilities have been stood up, there's typically some customizations, as Rich showed, some things that you might uniquely want to do. Those are very much managed through Martin & Associates. At a second level, Sage is providing support, and Zap, as the publisher of the application, is kind of the 3rd tier of support, if you will. The actual education opportunities that are available are readily out there on Sage University for you as customers. If you have staff that you want to move on from tools like Sage Intelligence or other reporting platforms, analytics design courses are available for those that might be more focused on the financial report design. There's specific courses for that as well. It's quite good. And then, of course, if you work with your contacts at Martin & Associates, they will be able to kind of get you pointed at some ebooks that are around the different offerings that we have. So apologies that we're kind of running just a little bit short on time, but Rick, could we possibly hand it back to you for any kind of closing comments and any questions that might be out there?
Yeah. Yep. Thanks a lot. Great presentation. I know I've seen it before, but I learned something new every time. So thanks, Rich, for doing that. And the 3-level pricing, I think, us as Martin Associates been around and seen these BI, business intelligence solutions before. The pricing is pretty attractive for what you can do to get going, with the with the basic versus the advanced, and it's a pretty reasonable price compared to the market out there. So it's pretty exciting. There were a couple of questions there that came through the host here. One of them was, what versions of Sage 100 does the system work with?
Great.
So we got customers on all different types of versions.
Yeah, Sage Data and Analytics, really, on paper and certainly, from a Sage perspective, really aligns with their product support policy, which is, I think, current version minus 2 versions. So that tends to be kind of where we most typically see customers coming to us from.
Right. So from a practical, since 2021 came out recently, so we'd be looking at 2019, 20, and 21 in general. So, okay. Yeah. There is a question about, can you run the software on your own servers? So it is cloud-based, but maybe you can, follow up on that question.
Sure. Yeah, it's a question we get from time to time. What we have chosen to do is really, at this stage, is the offering for Sage 100 and 300 is only available as a SaaS application, or only available as a cloud option.
Right. Gotcha.
That may change in the future, but I think that the experience that we've seen companies already have with it has been so positive. I don't know if it will change.
That's the power there. Yeah. So there's another question here about the refresh, and you touched on it a little bit, Rich. Maybe you can dive into that a little bit more. I know there is a manual refresh and a schedule, and you did mention, the example of refreshing overnight, but maybe you can explain that.
Yeah, Rich, you want me to start with that just based on the matrix of the plans? So
sure.
What you'll notice here on the plans is it says the one scheduled refresh per day. What's probably not kind of easily discerned is on the advanced and the premium plan. If you're working with Martin and Associates as your business partner, they can actually set up more frequent refreshes during the course of the day. They can configure that. It's just something we've enabled our Sage certified business partners to do. There is and always will be a manual option if you want to refresh a segment of the data. But typically speaking, a lot of organizations do well with an across the board refresh from all areas happening at least once a day. And then for things that are more kind of strategic that need to be monitored, GL is a great example.
Yes, right.
You want to refresh that once every couple of hours, something along those lines, because we grab the data incrementally. We're not grabbing the thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of GL records, but rather the hundreds of records that are on the GL since the last time.
I think the typical scenario that might be being thought of there is it's closing week, it's closing day, it's closing, right? And I need to make one more journal entry, but I need, the results in this, instantaneously, and then rerun my reports. That's where you would do the manual, and the theory is that it wouldn't be a long wait because of.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Right. Good deal. Let's see. I think that's all we had. There was one here about, can you have other data sources other than your Sage data? And I think you covered that. So from different applications to just a different SQL database, that type of thing, right?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, and available both on that advanced and premium package that are on. As just a way of an example, there's a recent customer that had purchased. They were on Sage 100. They had made investments around Sage CRM. They had a couple of other line of business databases, and so for them, they opted to go with the premium plan because of the fact that they had so many other data sources they wanted to connect.
Yeah. Good. All right. I think that's it from the questions. So
excellent.
Yes, we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. So thanks a lot for your, wait a minute, maybe, have you linked to UPS software?
All I can say, and I realize we're kind of right at the time, but we have not only the traditional, tabular kind of database connectivity that's happens through SQL connections, ODBC type connections, those sort of things. We also support API type connectivity, which I think Rich kind of touched on just a little bit. So if the UPS data is something that is accessed via API, that's great. I doubt that they have kind of a query interface, but if they also even have an export facility where you can export to CSV or to an Excel type format, that data can be loaded in as well. And for CSV and Excel files, that is not considered an additional data source. So you can actually have a lot of freedom to include those as well.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much. And thanks for the folks attending here for your time. And like we said, we'll be sending out follow-up notes with the recordings. And certainly talk to your Martin Associates, account manager if you got questions, or myself. And I guess we'll leave it at that. So thanks again for your time. And Rich and Trey, thanks a lot. That was, you covered all the bases.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.